What's up, everybody? It's Alistair, and welcome to Headspace, where I review some of my favorite shows. And today we're going over Miss Marvel Episode 4, Seeing Red. I know there's a lot of stuff going on, like the Super Bowl, or maybe there's just like a lot of people at your doorstep waiting to see you. But you're never too busy to not give a opinion, so if you want to like or subscribe, that'd be great. In Miss Marvel, this is my favorite episode because of Karachi and the Red Dagger, or in this case, the Red Daggers, multiple of them. This is the episode I remember the most when I think back on the whole thing. To me, it felt like they got like a celebrity action coordinator stop by and help them or coach them. I just imagine the whole crew just being like teenagers or young people, and they're just like adult stand ins. That's definitely the case whenever you get like someone really experienced come in with a different crew where they all like have already gotten used to each other and like already work in a certain way together. I mean, why wouldn't they just like reach out and like talk to other people that do the same thing? Sometimes in general, like there's like the person to talk to about certain things. And like they have certain experience and techniques about going towards a certain idea. I broadly re-administer my expectations for most things just because it works. So why wouldn't it be the case elsewhere? They don't do that certain thing where they like move with the characters and the cameras moving along. Like if you happen to see the behind the scene things for other shows, like they have like that little like train track for the camera or those like overhead guiding wires for the cameras to slide on. All the camera techniques you would learn first now are like pretty straightforward. Somehow the action techniques for the camera were like a lot different like 20, 30 years before. Maybe that's due to equipment, but it was like, oh, like bird's eye view perspective, or like you're out of your body, like watching yourself watch this moment and participate in the moment. Like those scenes where it's like over the character's shoulder and they're like watching this person talk, but kind of really it's like the from the perspective of the character's shoulders we're viewing it through, but it wasn't so literal where it's like just from the character's uh angle. But at least in this episode, it kind of like seems like the spirit of the show is like capturing all these moments. They're like trying to keep like the same theme going visually, but it kind of seems to me like they're like trying so hard not to do like all those like dynamic like scenes or camera techniques. Like the character like exasperatedly like running down the street and like the camera's like being lifted up and focusing on the character with the camera being the spirit of the show and it lifting up and leaving because it's going to find something more relevant, at least at the very moment. Like there's like all these other shows or movies happening like around the same character, but it was just paying attention to this one character. But now they're like, now they need to build up the moment and they're sad anyway because like they were just abandoned or something. Like later in the episode, Kamala gets a shroud of doubt, and then like all of her friends leave her, but they're just like, oh well, they're just both like, oh well, you're not being interesting anymore, so I'm gonna go now. Like right as her mood changed, her friends like left, and they didn't want to be there for it, but she's just like left there standing, like they know I don't know where I'm going. I don't know why they did that. while the camera's like just looking out or looking after Kamala, but not in a significant manner in any way. Sometimes the camera's like where she usually goes or where she's about to be. It's not looking for her, but it does know like about where she'll be at. Just kind of tagging along. And what the camera's looking for is the when of each action and happening. Like, oh, this is when this motivation gets stronger, or this is when the story moves along more. Knowing it's like a type of way that you would be or should be looking back on it more. Not even like regretfully, but when there's like moment to be filled, this type of answering of the when for something happening later is just conducive of what happens before it. Sometimes it's all the moments before the new moment or just a certain one that happened previous in the scene you're supposed to think back to and bring to the front of your mind to understand like all these like things happening constantly instead of all these moments stacking and getting further away from you or further from the point to where it's not even like there anymore. So it kind of is like a teenage or young person thing, only so far as like where it kind of seems like it's like, oh, did you ever like understand like what was going on with someone my age? Just because of the ideas of like stacking on top of yourself, like your age and your experiences, and only pulling from the most recent ones, like the camera motif. You kind of just go like, oh, like you've never had fun or don't believe in fun. Whereas the teenager would go, it's like, oh, okay, well, I go back to this, and it's just kind of like learning. It's like, oh, this could be fun, or even like some other mood, like important or special. They keep going within themselves that everything that they've built, like a little filing system. It's like, oh, they go over to the filing cabinet of themselves in their mind and just find the most relevant thing, and it's like, oh, okay, this is how I could apply myself to this moment instead of it having no significance at all, like in the opposing just stack of papers, and they just kind of like pull on like whatever's like easiest to get. But before that assertion gets too tangenty, and I start talking about mental processes and start doing psychology instead, I'll go back to the camera lens that is Miss Marvel. If you followed all that, just know to try and don't be lazy. That's the real moral of the camera here in Miss Marvel. We open up the episode with the splash cuts of Karachi, and you get to meet her nanny and I guess her friend cousins. I just said friends earlier. Like they're so far away from your branch of the family tree that you kind of just treat them as your friends, but they're your cousins. I guess you still call them cousin. Like that's what I do, but I'm not gonna be like, oh, this is my fifth cousin or something. The guy cousin kind of looks like a director or something, and the girl cousin is just like the with it friendly cousin, and her nanny is just like the I guess eccentric old person in Karachi. She's got a cane and a bunch of jewelry and a pretty baggy dress, but she's at least not just old. She tries to get on Kamala's level a little bit and just kind of like catch up with her. but she's like, oh yeah, I just got back from a party. Like that's what she thinks like Kamala's look like does. But it's obviously a joke, but it also like doesn't seem like off that she said that. So that there she at least goes with the flow and like tries to connect with you. Or Kamala in this case. But with Kamala's mom, she's like, oh hey, like you look different. But I'm sure she's looked about the same in the face, maybe expression wise. Because her mom makes this expression, like, kind of seems like a little different. Like this multi purpose look that she gives the Kamala's Nani. But knowing that she's a little closed off to a lot of people, she brings up a diet, probably just for Kamala to think about and like eventually bring up. It looks like just a small thing without like everyone just like giving like a full tour or like a history lesson about each other. And then there's like mood music or maybe it's character music, but it's kind of like mystical, like whimsical. It's the first time I noticed the music like a lot. And throughout the whole episode, I'm like, oh, is this for the character or what's happening? Other than the opening and the credits, I didn't really take note of the soundtrack. And then we get to a pretty big building. Like, I think it's Kamala's mom's, like, childhood home or, like, the family home, but there's a lot of rooms. At least, like, a lot of windows. It's a very light canary yellow color and white trimming. Looks like it's meant to be in the sun. And if you read the comics for a second, it's like, oh yeah, it's the building they're in. But in the comics, it kind of looks like a 4 or 5 story, like just rectangular building. And at least at the time of this recording, I'm kind of like more focused on like seeing different people in like different places. Because the next part I kind of just like glazed over, even though like I didn't like fast forward or anything. Like they go over the bangle and how it's kind of like sentient minorly or like has its own like direction it's supposed to be used for. And you find out Kamala's Nani is like can draw, and she was drawing things from India and before the partition. But they talk about that, and then her firsthand experience with the stars. That's obviously the hard light stuff that Kamala can make, coming from the Bengal, I guess, whenever she got lost as a child, leaving to Pakistan. And there's a trail of stars that led him right to her father. And how her, Kamala's Nani, father, said that they were jinn. And they restate that, like, maybe you didn't fully get it in the other episodes, but or just are now tuning in. Then we get her going to bed into the morning scene of her waking up to her cousins like hanging over her sleeping body on in her bed, and everyone's already up except Kamala, and then they're like making fun of her and her sloth. It's funny, but then like her mom says something in Urdu, but like I guess you're just supposed to assume that she like understands, but like I still have not heard her speak it once. At least in the thinking of this universe, I'm like, maybe she only understands it and doesn't speak it that much. I hear that happens, but then there's like another sibling that doesn't speak it at all, and it's just like knows like some random words and like barely understands it. Because the cousins are there and they're like, yeah, we're gonna show you some stuff. We have a new playmate, and they like walk off, like waiting for her to get up, and you realize they're like been speaking English, and then her mom speaks in Urdu, or maybe you say Pakistani, because I have the captions on most of the time. I'm sure there's like a specific dialect, but they have a lunch at a boat club. So it sounds like they're pretty sociable, or like maybe the high end of Pakistan. But it looks like they get to do some old school, just regular mingling, just to have something interesting happen in the world. I only say old school because like they may or may not know any of these people, but they go to like this thing. It kind of looks like a row of villas when they show like the neighborhood from overhead. I'm just like, man, like everyone has like really nice stuff here. They pull up in a pretty nice car. I just started just wondering about their situation where it's like, oh, did they like not have much and then just had this little big nugget they threw onto like a big house or a nice car and kept adding to it? I'm like, oh, that's nice. I'm just kind of confused because it doesn't seem like her nanny like does much, but I could be wrong. She might have like a business cane when she got uh Kamala from the airport instead of like a old lady, wise lady cane. For some reason, I just started wondering about her income. It must have been just because I was watching like the news earlier, but and like the girl cousin's like, I guess her name's Zainab. Um, it says it in the captions again. Like they make a point to show that Kamala like kind of doesn't fit in here either, but at least it's just because she wore jeans and they're not supposed to wear jeans at the boat club. And they're like suggesting going to the ball next because I guess they do that a lot. And she's gonna want to go eat at the buffet, not the patio. And they're like kind of like already over it, so they're like, trying to like plan out solutions because they're probably gonna come there the next day. And they're like, your look's kind of controversial, you know, your red Chuck Taylors and your jeans. And there's like this other lady like that comes in and leaks more of Kamala's mom's or Muniba, and how she was like a rebel just because her mom named her Kamala. They have all pretty safe bars of like what it is, like rebellious and controversial. I'm not sure what the normal one is. Maybe it's just like fine, okay, just a regular status. Maybe it's cool cucumber because like Kamala's like the only one sweating too. And the old friend of Kamala's mom is just like, it's like, oh, is it because of the jeans? Like that is different. But Kamala at least plays it off like their usual, like, where it's like, oh yes, the party puri. I wouldn't know how to explain it, but it's like, oh yeah, it's not the obvious thing happening or the different thing that's happening. It's like, oh, this was just the food was making me sweat while she's doing that like SNL Saturday Night Live like nervous sweating. um, I'm totally comfortable with this and everything that's going on. And she's just like, when did we all like switch moods, like or modes? Everyone else just kind of like seamlessly like does whatever, but in this situation, like, Kamala's like, I'm always like this, but everyone like else usually works around me or like lets me do my thing. And her family's just like, oh, there's other people, so like do this thing, not your thing. Especially in this extremely social situation. Everyone's conversing, getting to know each other in the background. Definitely engaged with everyone because they're like all standing and eating. A place where they all know the situation and what's supposed to be happening. I could think of it being at certain bars or places like that, and like it's still not like established at all. It's just like some places it's like not correct because I guess there's not regulars maybe, and then you're at other places and like it doesn't seem to be like any normal interaction happening. There's like the first one where it's like, oh yeah, let's talk, blah blah blah. But you can't even get that to happen. You're like trying to talk to someone and they like cut the conversation or can't have a conversation. And then you're like forced to go on to like another person. And like afterwards, you're like, I guess they were there for a certain reason. But it definitely didn't seem like they got the suggestives to keep the whole experience going. And I'm pretty sure that's what's happening with Kamala, like with her extended family and like the extended family's friends and stuff. They had to slip in some implied like awkwardness a little bit. But like that's when like people would be like, maybe I should like wear something else or what they're about to do and what the cousin suggests. She's like already acting like the odd person at the boat club, and the solution is what the other person would have like been like. It's like, oh, was something on my face? Like, and I guess like what remains is like the cousins are like wanting her to get along with as many people as she can and feel comfortable. Just like, anyone can be your crowd. Like, kind of brings in the try and don't be lazy thing. And I'm only like barely projecting or projecting like 10%. I swear it's a part of what's happening in the episode. Because like if you try to do your own thing so much that you're like avoiding like just like anything that's like not claimed, you'll just end up like not interacting with the right people or enough people. But Kamala's just like trying to assert herself as a kind of person or a brand of person, but she should just be like letting herself interact and then do some of that like later. While there's like always some real interesting different people like around her. But at least she's not like infernally like bored with everything around her. That kind of seems to be like a high end, like high society like lesson, and definitely trying to bring up social awareness. Because if you look at certain areas, it's like I don't know if it's working out in general. So you like stick to where it is, and I guess in a way like that's kind of what Kamal's doing, but she hasn't found it where it's like more than just her. Hopefully, it's the better of the two evils that everyone sees that's happening with her, or the latter, some people would say. If they were to try to drive the point across on the screen, they would be like, oh, well, don't be you too hard, I guess. And Kamala would just be like, oh man, or something. And then there's the whole scene where she gets her Polaroid picture for 1,500 rupees. And then her cousins, Suture, they like don't try to call or find her the whole time. But she tries to go to the train station, see if there's any clues. But then there's like a living clue, and she runs into the Red Dagger, and she has like a little like chase scene, kind of a fight scene. And then the Red Dagger's like, oh, I sense the newer. And you get to see how capable each of them are, but it's mostly the Red Dagger and Kamala with her new mask on, just kind of like throwing her powers around, not really like combat ready, but I guess she at least was competent enough the weeks before or days before when the clandestines were fighting her. I guess she needs more like motivation because the Red Dagger guy's going fairly easy on her. But the train station security shows up, and then the Red Dagger realizes she's not fully on like attacking him and sees the bangle. It's like, oh, how'd you get that from Aisha? And this Red Dagger boy takes her to a Chinese restaurant, and his hideout, which is pretty cool in the back of the restaurant. There's all these like cool designs behind like frosted glass and like uh glass bordering effect instead of it just like being painted in. And there's like a Q Red Dagger, but I guess the organization's the Red Daggers. There's a older person like explaining everything and then explains the Noor dimension and how they usually want to take over the space in between where there's an overlap with uh, their dimension on the land. He has this nice little map on the wall where, like, I guess they like study and like examine like certain areas. A lot of their land masses are over the water, where there's the ocean on the Earth map. Well, all the while there's like this sort of thing happening, like a rock's throw away from like her Nani's house. So I guess maybe the cousins like led her here because she's like, oh, there she's going, like find the red daggers. Like I just wanted to go hang out at the boat club. I thought she was gonna be like boring or are exciting. Her mom said she was gonna be boring. Really, I'm still wondering where her cousins are at. But then the main adult red dagger is telling Kamala all that stuff, and he notices the inscription on her bangle, and she's like, "Oh, what does it mean?" And he tells her it's what you seek is seeking you. And to me, that just sounded like it's dependent on who's wearing it and like what she wants. So I guess maybe her mom could have like just avoided the whole thing and even put it on, like, and not even did anything for her other than just like linking her to the Noor just minorly. Although it makes you wonder like how they can sense it, but it could just be some people can just notice that kind of stuff. So, but after the hideout scene, there's like a lot of connecting scenes. There's Kamran and the clandestine at the Supermax prison with damage control there. Still no word of Shield. Might be a copyright issue, but I guess there could be more than just one like group dealing with like metahumans or super people. They're getting escorted to their cell or about to be interrogated, and then they escape. But then Najma kind of just leaves. Kamran is the main part. Well, the main part for me is like they each had like a little like weapon, but you definitely at least see Gold Mace guy get his thing back with some pep. And there's like I think Kamran's mom Najma gets the door locked with the something that melts the lock, but his mom just kind of like lets him go, and he's like, "Ami, like what the heck?" Which is, I guess, pretty good for either of them. I guess mental health wise, just because it's like, oh well, he already like isn't on my side, and Kamran like didn't really agree what was happening anyway. But I guess he was about to like haggle with them about it. But it happens as like they just barely get outside, and Kamran got hit by a sonic rifle or whatever it was. I don't know why. Like I need to know the name, but I was like, is it a sonic rifle or pulse rifle? But then after that, you get another scene with Kamala's Nani, and it partially is like you get a taste of different countries like film movie like feel, and you get to see what her Nani has been working with, and there's like a cool scenery, like outlooking the city of Karachi. For some reason, I thought there was like a bunch of like kites flying, but like I guess it was just like random like people's laundry or just like some like box of color. But then you get to experience like the text being like formed out of like something in the background of Kamala's phone and what's being texted to her from the beginning episodes. And it's the Red Dagger guy. I guess his name is Kimmo or Kareem, but he texts her and he's just wanting to have her come out for the night. But then she has like a nice, fashionable night out. Like it kind of almost seems like they're like on the beach, but it's just like somewhere you don't really get to exactly see because there's like a fire and they like eat around the fire and like there's someone playing guitar. Seems kind of nice just because like they don't have to necessarily be doing anything. They're just mostly just in each other's company and like enjoying the night. And you get to see more of the like environment and the sets. And I just now realized it's like, oh yeah, like those houses seem like they're like the ones in the South in America, like or some house in New Orleans or something like that. But I suppose like they're like the older ones here in Pakistan. So I suppose like the ones in New Orleans look like those houses. I don't know why I'm randomly looking at the architecture, but I haven't really been there myself. But I hear there's like a area that kind of like reminds me of like this building, but there's like more than just the one that her or Kamala's nanny lives in. But you see up close the cleaning rampage Kamala's nanny mentioned earlier that her mom was on. Well, you get to see like the like oh, it looks like a study almost, but like it might be a bedroom because there's like a little floating thing like Kamala's nanny is sitting on, and it's like on these like long chain things. There's like a pink blanket like on it, like if you look at the scene, and it's like near the middle of the room. It doesn't really like swing because like the chains it's on, but you get this like real like ideal conversation between the mom and the daughter about how she's kind of like worried about her and she why she was frustrated about her like areas not being clean, and she offers to have her go live with them in America. It kind of looks like she's like, "Oh, you should have come with me. Like, it would have been nice." But at least whenever she mentioned her story before, like everyone was kind of alone, and then they came together because like they're all like immigrants, and she kind of didn't like people there in Karachi. Uh, that she didn't like their opinions about her mom, even though like it kind of seems like she didn't really exactly like ask people about her. It almost explains why she like instantly does like the flipping thing, like whenever like Kamala was like putting the dress on, it's like, oh, like that looks good on you. It's like, and then her friend comes in, it's like, oh, that looks bad, and that she like instantly was like trying to like have everything fit in and like go to like where there's like people around her. She didn't say like which crazy theories or crazy why they were calling her crazy, or rather like she thought people thought that. But it all boils down to like her mom being like in her own world and she like not trying to like include herself in what's happening around her. But they have that conversation, and almost in an eerie fashion, she's like already like pulled herself together because she has obligations to Kamala too as her mom. The transition was just like a little alarming for me because it's like right after. But as you watch it, it kind of looks like she like reverted back to her younger self. She's like eating those toffees, like uh, she likes, I guess. So now it's just like two daughters at the table, like eating, and she's like laughing. Like it's almost laughing with her, but she's laughing at her because she like can't like eat the toffees. But then you get the equipping scene before like one of my most memorable like sequences for the whole season at the ABC Chinese restaurant they reveal where Kamala starts getting some sort of a outfit or it's a robe right now, but for her heroine life, where she like comes together as a superpowered person uh, at the base part, and we'll get to see the superhero part. She already has some red on as like the little dress thing. Yeah, but then she gets the blue vest that the Red Daggers give her. And there's like a little like rundown of her skills and powers. Like a spy dossier or like um, team profile that they have before the heist or whatever. But really, this is like alluding to the action that's about to come. And as she's popping on the vest, the clandestines drop in to the Red Dagger hideout. But there's a tussle in the hideout, and it ruins this beautiful place that they're in, and so starts the car chase. So they're being pursued. There's like two or three like different vehicles after them, and there's like a whole marketplace and a busy road being the place that they're like being chased in. So there's a lot of chaos, and eventually, like, there's a part where there's like a family. There's like a baby, mom, kid, dad, all on like a bike. It looks like, but there's like little trailers like for some motorcycles, and Kamala like makes a little hard light ramp, and then it leads like the car that's like almost running her little like buggy motorcycle over to flip over on the ramp, which I thought it was pretty cool for the sake of chaos. But the three are separated where there's the younger Kareem, Kimo, Red Dagger, and Kamala in her makeshift outfit right now. And the oldest Red Dagger being separated, and it's like, oh, I'll hold him off. And it switches to being on foot because everyone had crashed their vehicles, or they were all like rendered unrideable, and they have to like give them the slip in the very colorful streets. It's all very like chaotic, like as I've been saying, but I like how later, like as he the oldest Red Dagger gets cornered by Najma, and Kamala and Kareem are like running down below on the street level, and like he's up on the balcony. He like takes out one of the clandestines, and Kareem like throws like some like propane or something into a vat of like boiling oil and makes a little like smoke screen like grenade out of like boiling oil. But unfortunately, the oldest Red Dagger takes a hit and doesn't survive the experience and horrifically falls to the street level from the balcony from where he was fighting. And Kamala and the other Red Dagger has to press on. And they get cornered in a courtyard where there's laundry being washed, but it looks very colorful again. And a fight breaks out. And eventually, Najma stabs the bangle, and all of a sudden, Kamala is at a train station, most assumedly way back when Aisha was like urging people away from India in partition times. There's like steam engines everywhere, and like everyone's dressed differently. There's no sneakers or anything. And this is the part where you're like, oh, like maybe like this is partially what the Noor does, or the bangle, or maybe it's like half of the uh dimension portal opening thing that they were wanting to do with the two bangles. But jumping to certain points in time is the single bangles function. But the episode caps out there with Kamala like realizing where she's at. But tell me what you think in the comments, and I'm sure you noticed the corner here and wondering why it says Sleep Atomic. And while I was looking at the Headspace stuff, I was like, oh, like I wonder what it looks like when I search it. Like a different Headspace showed up, and like a mental wellness and meditation company. So I was like, oh, unfortunately, because I wanted to be original, and I'm sure they've just now noticed that I'm using their name here. Like, I'm gonna have to switch over to Sleep Atomic. Hopefully, I'll have some nice things and a little bit of format change just because there's a name change. I had a few names before I wanted to use, but I liked Headspace the best. I had Sleeping Thoughts and Thought Red, like text red, or Thought Reading Red, depending on how you read it, but this is my other one I liked. This will be the last time this segment will be called Headspace, so give a like and subscribe to Sleep Atomic now, and have yourself a good day, night, morning, and I'll see you next time with episode 5, called Time and Again, with my favorite parts of this season, and most memorable, I believe, just for everybody that sees it. So don't miss out. Did they have a toy for this Miss Marvel? I guess it's still pretty new. But hey, you look good. It shows.